My name is Sierra, and welcome to the Indie Film Wrap. Today, I'm so excited. We have special guest Jordan Imiola, writer, director, producer, and someone from Buffalo, New York. Jordan, great to have you here.
Great to be here, Sierra.
So it's awesome to have you on the show. We have a history, and we're friends, and we've had a working relationship. So it's great to bring you on. I'm excited to dive into more of these details of your experience. I'd love to hear first, what is your filmmaker origin story? Like, what was your first memory of being inspired to become a filmmaker?
When I was in high school, I was in 11th grade, and we had a project where the teacher broke us into teams of two, and we had to write a play about an amendment. I think it was an amendment. We all chose different amendments, and like, what was the story? Like, how did this become an amendment? So I didn't really have any friends. I was totally new to the school, and there was this kid who sat in the back of me. And we were both kind of like nerdy kids, anyways, and we had this amendment, and we wrote this 10-minute play. He had to play like a female teacher, and I had to play a Supreme Court judge. And we did this 10-minute play in front of the entire class, and everyone else had about like 2-minute presentations, and we just went all out. And I remember writing all these different jokes. I remember I wrote this joke that was a Supreme Court justice said, like, "What's your beef?" That got a big laugh in the class. And just like, it was just like a 10-minute comedy play about an amendment. But the teacher was super proud of me. I was proud of myself because I made like the entire class laugh, and I've never did that before. And after that, I just started writing more, and I got a camcorder. I started writing these little short films I would do myself. I would recruit my 2-year-old cousin at the time and make him the main character.
After high school, you went to school in Buffalo and then moved to LA shortly after. Can you talk about what that was like a little bit, working with film in college, and then LA is a big jump, and why LA versus New York, which is obviously New York City would be closer.
After high school, I went to college, Buffalo State College in Buffalo. Let's just say Buffalo a bunch this interview. See. But yeah, in college, I think it was my sophomore or junior year, I was in communications. I was studying communications, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do with that. And around the same time, I think the school recruited a teacher or something. But anyway, this guy named Jeff Hirschberg came from LA back to Buffalo State. And he was a teacher there, and a new major pretty much started. Where only 15 students got in, and I was in the first class to get in, and you had to submit like a script and a short film. I had an internship with Fox in 2009, so I did that, and then came back to Buffalo for 1 semester, graduated, and then came back to LA 2 weeks later. I was jobless for 2 months, and then the 3rd month I got a job with Fox. Yeah, and I've been now in LA for too long, 10 and a half years. About
the job that you got with Fox, because
yes.
You interned there. So did the internship help you secure that job? If so, how? Did you reach out again?
Pretty much my boss in my internship worked for where I was going to work at Fox. But it wasn't like Fox Sports. It really wasn't my cup of tea, honestly, where I worked. But just because it was more Fox Sports and I was more creative and comedy. So it wasn't directly where I wanted to go, but the internship definitely helped just because of the connection. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So you also brought up, and this is something, I mean, as an actor, I'm always curious to hear other perspectives. And so like, you brought up that you love TV writing, you really love TV writing, and that their TV writing and film writing are different. So can you talk a little bit about how those are different?
TV is a little bit shorter. I mean, again, I mostly write sitcoms, so they're half-hour comedies, where a movie is about 90 to 120 pages long. Usually in movies too, the rule of thumb is for every page, it equals a minute on screen. TV can differ from that depending on the genre, depending if it's like sometimes multi-cams and single cams, they're written differently, so they look different. But in general, movies are 90 to 120 pages. My first spec, I think, was in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I wrote that in like 3 days. And it's not very good because this was 10 years ago. but yeah, the structure is completely different, but they're both a lot of fun. And I feel like for me, movies, I mastered the structure, and now it's a lot easier to write movies than it was my first like 5 or 6 movies that I wrote. When you talk about spec scripts in terms of like TV, like you're writing a spec script, it's usually for a show. I mean, a lot of times you're talking about a show that's already on the air, but you're writing it just for fun, or you might be writing it for a fellowship as well.
And when you write a spec script, is it always a full episode, and should it exist in the current season? Or do you ever do an exercise where you like go back to episode 2 after the pilot and write a spec for that? Or is it always pretty the current iteration of the show?
Any show that you're trying to spec should be a current TV show. It should never be a show that's been off the air. So like, my spec of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and Broad City, I can't even send those to anyone anymore because both those shows are not in the air anymore. It should always be current. It should be like what's on. It also really helps too if it's a show that's like just ended its first season or is like in its second or third season. So a spec of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia probably isn't the best thing to do because there's been 20 years of that. All those ideas are probably all out there.
All of the ideas have been exhausted.
Yeah. Same thing with The Simpsons. Do not write a Simpsons spec. That's like, I hear that all the time. But it's always like Extraordinary Playlist would be good. Pen 15 is probably a good show to spec right now.
What are some other tips or advice that you would give to people? Maybe someone is thinking about writing for TV or film, and they're not in LA and thinking about moving. What are some steps that they should take, or how do they know when they might be ready to make that step?
I would say have at least a few scripts done. I had 3 screenplays already done. I had a couple shows already spec'd, and I think I might have wrote a pilot by then. So I had like a good amount of scripts done. And even then, like I was so naive and young, and like, I mean, I'm glad I was 22 at the time when I moved out here. I'm glad I did it then, but yeah, definitely have things ready. Don't be a total newbie coming to LA. I would prepare. And also just the biggest advice, I mean, this is cliche, but just write. You have to write every day. You have to get into the habit of writing every day. Constantly make yourself write. Even if you're not in the mood, just, have a certain time of day where you just wake up and you write, or just, yeah, that's the biggest thing, is write every single day. The more you do it, the more your brain will get used to it, the more ideas will come. And yeah, just focus on that, and then the focus will come back to you.
Yeah. So you make it a daily habit, which is great. Is there anything that you do to help you stick to that habit? Because sometimes people get writer's block or they have these distractions. Has anything helped you?
For me, I'm like a morning person or a night person. I don't really write too well during the day. I mean, I will make myself do it. That's another thing, is I just like have to make myself do that. Like sometimes it's just about writing about what is the bad version of this idea, like, or what's the bad version of this scene, because like I might be in the middle of a movie and I'm stuck in the middle of act 2, but I have to write the bad version in order to get to act 3. Just get the first draft out there. It doesn't have to be good. The first draft is just for you. Nobody else will look at it, but it's just about pushing the story and finding ways to get it moving. And sometimes it's just making yourself do it. Like you have to sit down and like for 20 minutes just it feels almost miserable when you start, but like once I get 5 minutes into it, then I start finding ideas that I do kind of like, or I'll start to go in this direction, or a little line of dialogue will inspire something else, and I'm like, oh, this character now likes this, or like that character smells, now it's the smelly person, and like how do I make them smell later, or, so like, you have to make yourself do it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who kind of have the same time of day. I used to do that. I used to have the same time of day. But I mean, I'm pretty good with my own habits, I think, now, where and I stick with my deadlines too. Like if you have a deadline, that's the biggest thing, is stick with them. Do not allow excuses. If you have, and also, I mean, just have people who will hold you accountable. That's if someone will be on your back, like, is your script done? Or if they will get on your back. And I'm the same way too. I will be in people's backs, and because I know it helps me, so I'm the one who will push other people, because I want that same thing when it's my turn to get something done.
That brings us to it's a perfect segue into Deadline Junkies.
Sure, yeah, Deadline Junkies is a really just awesome group. When I moved to LA, I had like one friend who was my roommate, and I just Googled like writing groups in LA, and I found Deadline Junkies, and I've been going to it for 12 years, and how it works is if you're a writer in the group, you have to write 25 to 30 new pages every single 5 weeks. And I do not allow repeats on when I run the Wednesday group. I do not allow repeats because I want those writers to stay on their deadlines. It's called Deadline Junkies for a reason. It's just a great writing and acting group. You've been there obviously. And we all support each other. We pretty much do 3 table reads every single week. They're all about half-hour long, so actors get to read on stage, or not on stage anymore, but on Zoom.
I think this is another great thing for the writers and the actors. There's a feedback process that happens. So after the scripts are read, the writers will give each other feedback on those scripts. And so it's great for writers to get that feedback and just get a bunch of takes. And if they're hearing the same note 5 times, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they'll get joke pitches to add to their script, which is great. But as an actor too, that's been so valuable to kind of learn the way that writers think and the way, the kind of the behind the scenes process. So it's a great group. Everyone should find a way to connect more writers and actors.
Yeah, and you guys bring so much to the table too. There's just hearing the script out loud. Like for me, I always figure out the rhythm of a scene once I hear it out loud. Like I'll know, oh, I have to take that line out, or that joke falls flat, or that joke was really good because that actor's really good. It's not my writing, or sometimes it is the writing, but yeah, it helps so much. Like the actors, just hearing it, having table reads and hearing actors say the dialogue out loud, you will figure out what works and what doesn't work so quickly.
So this writing every day has obviously been working for you, and being in LA has been good. As a friend and someone who knows you, when you sold your first screenplay, I know that was a big deal and such an accomplishment. So can you share a little bit about what that process was like, and not just like, yay, I did this, but what it took to get there? So how many times did you submit it before it actually sold, or like what was the connection to help make the sale?
It was the 10th feature I wrote. 2011, I think it was like my 8th feature I wrote. I had this feature called Man, I Feel Like a Woman. And it was about 2 female stand-up comedians who cross-dress as guys to prove women can be just as funny as men. You might have seen this at Deadline Junkies. And I finished it in 2011. I got about 10 meetings from it. And everyone liked the idea, but no one was buying it. And I met this producer, and he was like, this isn't for me, but what else do you have? And my 10th screenplay I was working on at the time, I pitched it to him right there and then. And the log line for that is a feel-good comedy about a boy trying to kill himself. And he was like, when you finish this, send it to me. So I think it was like 3-4 months later down the road, I finished the script, I sent it to him. He had some notes. We went back and forth, and he was like, I love this idea. I love how it ends. I love, it's a happy comedy, but the beginning though is just this guy trying to commit suicide. He keeps getting it wrong. Then he falls in love, and there's a whole love story. And but I got pretty much from that meeting from another screenplay, I talked to this guy. And I think we met like 2 or 3 times. But yeah, within 6 months, he optioned it. And an option, pretty much for your listeners, is a producer will option something first usually. And an option is they give you 10% of the money, and they have the rights for a certain amount of time. It's generally about 1.5 years. So they give you, this amount of money, and they have the rights for 1.5 years, about. And that 10%, you get to keep that, and they, in that 1.5 years, have to get the budget for the whole movie. And if it happens, then they will give you the other 90%, and the movie's sold, which is awesome. But that usually doesn't happen. Usually it'll go back to you. So you keep that 10%, but after 1.5 years, the screenplay goes back to you, and you're allowed to go somewhere else with it. But in my case though, for that one, I think we had 1.5 years option, and then we had a 1 year extension, which means I got a little bit more money. I think it was 2016. I was like dead broke. I was so poor. My wife and I think, were thinking about going somewhere else because we just couldn't afford LA. And one day, I think I was writing in a coffee shop like 7 a.m. It's about to go to work, and it was like 8:30 a.m. And when I got to my building to go take a shower, my manager from my apartment building was like, "Hey, there's something for you in the mail." And I was like, "It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Who's bringing something in the mail?" So I checked the mail, and the director of the movie that I optioned left a gigantic check that let me, that, you know, it was my first sold movie, and that check just changed my life. That let me stay in LA, you know, permanently, and it changed my life. But it was definitely the time I needed it the most.
Oh my gosh.
And I also forgot about, like, I forgot it was 2.5 years. I forgot that the agreement was ending. So yeah, it was like perfect timing, and it was life changing.
I love these stories where it's like you think, you know, your time in LA is over, and you're not sure what's going to happen next, and then you just get a check in the mail, and
Yeah.
and it's because I think it's because you didn't give up. You kept writing every day.
Yep.
Like you were still pursuing your dream, and that's amazing. You recently directed your first feature-length film on Zoom.
Yep.
Tell us how that idea came to be.
So I'll be honest, so the pandemic hit in March. From March till September, I forced myself to write. I make it a daily habit, and I wrote, I think, like two or three scripts. I think mostly pilots. I think one was like an hour long, one was a half hour. I just don't like them, honestly. I wrote them to get them done. I wrote them to present the Deadline Junkies, but everything I wrote from March till September of this year, I just didn't like, and I was in a funk. I think a lot of us were in a funk. I had the COVID blues, like the waves of COVID blues coming in and out throughout the different months. And then the end of September, I was in this chair. It was like September 30th or maybe October 1st. And I remember it was like 12 o'clock at night on a Thursday. And I was like sad. I was just, because again, COVID. And I can't remember how I thought of it, but I remember thinking about, like, what if I don't go home this Christmas? Like, that's like, I really wanted to go home, because I already had plans to go home, but because of COVID, I didn't. And I just started thinking about, like, and that's kind of like my worst nightmare, is I wouldn't be able to go home for Christmas. But then my mind, because, like, you know, me and you, we both love comedy. My mind's like, well, how do I make this funny? so I was like, well, what if a family couldn't go home for Christmas, but they had to throw like a party online? And I'm like, what are the conflicts? What could I bring to the table to make this funny? And I also started thinking about Love Actually, because I was like, I could just do this on Zoom, and it could be like Zoom Actually, just like follow these characters. Because another thing I was thinking about too is, if you can't stay on someone for a really long time, because the audience will get bored.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
yeah, so you need like a cast of characters. You need a bunch so that we can kind of go places, and the audience will be able to watch and like not get bored with the same person. So yeah, I just started writing it like that night. I wrote for like 3 hours all these ideas. For the next few weeks, I was just thinking about all these different ideas, and some of them I used, some of them I didn't use, some of them I wrote and then I couldn't use at all because of like different reasons. But it was just about like brainstorming, and that's the first idea I had in like 6 months that I was really excited about, and I just started writing it every single night nonstop.
What for anyone who's gonna, you know, try filming something on Zoom, what were some of the biggest takeaways or things that you learned?
So one thing I love is how quick it is.
Hey, Dad. Merry Christmas Eve. How are you?
I just woke up and I'm already feeling betrayed.
You did tell him that we can't come home for Christmas this year, right?
Not exactly.
Oh my God, it's Christmas Eve.
Why didn't you two tell me you're not going back home for Christmas?
There's got to be a way that we can be together without actually being together.
We should throw Dad a Zoom Christmas party.
Plus with our last name being Gloomgardy, it'll be a Gloomgardy Zoom party.
Who's a huh? What?
This is my favorite lesbian niece.
This is your favorite straight niece.
Oh, I don't have one of those.
I'm a Zoom Santa Claus. Ho, ho, ho. What would you like for Christmas, little old lady?
I have 3 Christmas conditions if you want me to go to this party.
Party? Will there be a keg?
Do you have a keg at home?
No.
You're number one. I wish number one had a job.
Will there be hard liquor?
Do you have hard liquor at home?
No. Ho times 3?
Boston Market or bust?
What is going on? What kind of twisted joke is this? What kind of sick?
Surprise!
Oh.
So will there be any drugs?
You clearly don't get how this party works.
No. I get it. So what kind of drugs will there be?
if I want to make it a Christmas movie, I have 2 months to do this. Like I can do it, but like, is it possible? And we started filming, my friends and I started filming sketches called Sketches. That's why I'm,
Sketches, called
yeah.
sketches. Sketches.
Yeah. When I was filming those, I realized for every 3 pages, it takes about an hour and a half compared to like being on a real set where it's like, 2 hours per page or more or less. That generally filming on Zoom, it's so much quicker, especially if like you make it super simple. If you're making it really complex, then like it's going to take more time. But I knew the storylines I had were pretty simple. And I generally knew how much time it was going to take, and it did. It only took, generally the rule is 3 pages took an hour and a half or less. Sometimes we would shoot 5 pages in an hour.
I got to be in this movie. I make a special appearance. Something that surprised me was, the speed of it. And I feel like even shot listing seems like it was easier on Zoom because you have gallery view or you're doing, a single. So, you knew like as we were going through the pages, like, okay, well, this is going to be the single on Annie, or this is going to be a gallery view shot of everyone. And I feel like that, it's interesting how those limitations can heighten our creativity in a way.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And I believe in happy accidents. I believe in like finding the budget work for you. Yeah. All those things. And like, it's really fast. I recommend it.
Awesome. So what are some other things that maybe you're currently working on or looking forward to in the new year?
So right now I'm taking like a little bit of a break because we just released Christmas Staycation 2 days ago. I'm still kind of working on stuff like that. I'm doing promo stuff, but there's a project I love, and I've been working on it for the past like 3 years. I've written 6 episodes of it. It's a TV project of mine called it was called Grandma Knows Best, and then it was called Badass Grandma. Now it might be my favorite grandma. I don't know. But I think Grandma Knows Best is the title I had the longest time. It's a TV show about a grandma who just gets out of prison. She meets her family for the first time, and her grandkids have no idea who she is. And it's just like a family sitcom. And I love it. I've wrote 6 episodes of it, and I'm still gonna push it. I had some people kind of interested in it this year. And we'll see what happens with that, but that's definitely my passion project for sure. Is like, I hope that's a TV show someday, because I love it so much. I think I can get like at least 7 seasons out of it, if not more. But yeah, for new ideas, I don't know those new ideas yet, but I will find those out in January once I start getting a deadline and working towards that deadline.
Great. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great, just chatting and hearing more. Everyone needs to go check out Christmas Staycation. Even if it's the new year, enjoy Christmas Staycation. It's a really, really funny film.
I feel like for me, like looking back at it, like I looked at it kind of last week without putting myself into it. And for me, just watching it, it kind of reminded me of like a really good episode of 30 Rock. Because it's just joke after joke after joke after joke, but like you're having a ball the whole time. So if you like 30 Rock, I think you'll like Christmas Staycation.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun.
xmasstaycation.com. So you can find it on there.
Deadline Junkies, how can people get connected to Deadline Junkies?
Deadlinejunkies.com is the website. We're also on Instagram at Deadline Junkies LA, and then there's a Twitter at Deadline Junkies. And yeah, if you're serious about writing, feel free to join, but I definitely get a few scripts though under your belt before trying to present something. I get a lot of people who are like, oh, I want to present this up as my first script. I'm just like, no, I'm not giving you give me a few scripts first. But yeah, we have a ton of great talent, so much great writing. Wednesdays is mostly a comedy night. There's so many funny people there. You know this too. The actors are great. A lot of the Deadline Junkies too are in the movie Christmas Staycation. So,
Jordan and Imiola, thank you so much for being a part of our show. It was so great having you on as a guest. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, you gave so much nuggets of wisdom and just shared a lot of great information today. So thank you for that. Everyone, please go check out Christmas Staycation. It's like an hour and a half, 30 Rock episode. A lot of fun. And then if you're a writer or an actor and you want a community to get involved in, check out Deadline Junkies.
Thank you so much, Indie Film Wrap, for having me. It was great to be here.